Hello everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to our weekly Spy Family discussion video. See, I said it this time without putting the X in there. Like Hunter. Okay, I'm sorry. Because I've seen a lot of people getting in trouble for that, or yelling at anti-tubers. Apparently that's a thing. A lot of anti-tubers are saying Spy X Family. But, yeah, Spy Family episode 3. And I am joined once again by the Startacular Stella Luna.
Hello.
Yee. So, before we get into it though, if I could see 200 likes on this week's video, 200 before next week, then I will give you a crisp high five. You can ask Stella. They are very crisp and inviting high fives. So if we hit 200 likes, a crisp high five.
Sounds delicious.
A crisp high five. Crispy high five. But with that
Crispy
said...
Five Guys?
Crispy Five Guys, I will give you Crispy Five Guys if we have 200 likes. I will buy you some Five Guys. Man, I could go for Five Guys. But with that said, let's talk about Spy Family. Episode 3.
Let's go.
So, I'm sure we've probably mentioned this before, but it bears repeating that if anything happened to Anya, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself.
Yep.
Yeah. Anya is fantastic. She is absolutely like... Well, it's funny because last week, if I'm remembering correctly, it was kind of like an Anya light episode. She wasn't really in it that much.
No.
Whereas this week, I think they kind of put the focus more on them as like a family, right?
Yeah.
Which is something that we had said that I think like the OPs kind of get confused. Is like the OP and the ED seems to focus very heavily on Anya.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not really what you should be doing, because it should be more of like the Trinity. Because to me it's like what makes them like, they're cool characters on their own, but what makes them interesting is that they're a family.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the interesting thing. Or they're like, you know, pretending to be a family. And this week's episode is literally about that, like trying to get these three very unique individuals to sort of come together and form this upper class kind of rich type family. Which is obviously something that none of them are used to, so they're trying to adjust to it, right?
Yeah.
Like, they go to the opera, they go to the art house, they go all over the place. And it's cute, right? Because it's all Twilight's way of trying to get them prepared for that big interview, which does seem to be happening next week.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a very genuinely cute episode. And I was gonna say that, like, I was kind of surprised because the episode was really, like, lacking in action. I don't know if you felt that too. But then out of nowhere, it's like, there's a purse snatcher. It's like, that felt like that was thrown in there to be like, action! It's like, oh!
Action! Yeah, there, look at how cool. Yeah, awesome! Woo!
Yeah, woo! Right? Because it's like, you could have just had them, like, accidentally bump into the old lady, and the old lady's like, oh, you guys seem like a lovely family, right? Like,
yeah.
But we're like, let's make it a purse snatcher. You know, like, let's make it like an action scene so we can have Twilight be a badass. And Lord jump like 30 friggin' feet. Like, that was crazy. I keep forgetting that Laura is also, like, basically a ninja. Right?
Yes.
Like, she's as an assassin. Like, that jump she made, like, we were both like, holy crap.
Yeah, like
holy
she floored moly. It. Yeah. I think this episode was more or less to kind of set up them as a family.
Yeah.
This was a building episode, you know? Like, not every episode's gonna be jam-packed with action every week, right?
It can't always be action and sort of like mystery and intrigue. It's not always going to be a spy thriller.
They have to put the family somewhere in Spy Family.
Exactly.
Like, you can't just be just Spy.
You can't just be constantly Spy. This show's not called Spy.
Spy. Like, if it was constantly Spy, we just called Spy, but this is Spy Family.
Yeah.
So it means that, you know, the family, like, aspect is going to be important in this, and they needed to set up these characters and how they interact and everything. I just love seeing Anya be so excited to now have a mama. Like, that was her just showing Yor around and was like, look at, here's the bathroom, here's the toilet,
I can wash my face. Yeah,
I can wash my face, I can do this. Look at, this is Papa's room. This is my room. Welcome.
Behold, Mr. Chimera.
Behold, Mr. Chimera, wow, you know, like she's so
she's so bubbly.
cute.
She's so great. Like it's funny, right? Because like this is all she wanted, right? And not only did she get like Anya's out here living her best life when you think about it, right? Because like Anya not only gets to have a mama and a papa, right? She gets a mom and a dad, but also they're a spy and assassin just like her anime, right? Like so she gets both worlds. Like she gets to have like the nice family who also are badasses like she wanted, you know. When it's funny too, they call him Bond Man, which I didn't realize. Because her show is called. I thought it because it looked like it was supposed to be sort of like Dick Tracy almost.
Yeah.
But I was like, I guess that wouldn't make sense because Dick Tracy's a detective, right?
Yeah,
so,
it was like James Bond.
Yeah, James Bond. So it's Bond Man, right? Like sort of like because I was like Bond Man, I guess sort of like Superman, but he's a spy, Bond Man. Or I'm trying to think of like the Super Sentai character who like grows. I can't think of his name, but something man, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely supposed to be like a kid show that involves a spy who happens to probably look a little bit like Twilight, right? Because when she draws Bond Man, she was actually like when he thinks she's drawing Bond Man in the museum, she actually drew Twilight, which is funny, right? Because she was drawing Twilight in Yor. Which I do think was really cute.
It was funny because she thought she had a crisis. Like, oh no, I drew him. How dare? Oh no, like I drew him. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like, no. They're gonna know. They're gonna know I'm psychic. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And he's like, ah, yes. What a very nice picture you drew. And she's like, crisis averted. Man,
oof,
like
scary.
Like,
yeah, she had like her own little like, they almost caught me. Meanwhile, they're just like. Is that supposed to be from your cartoon? What is that? Right? Like, what am I looking at? Well, I love when what does she say? She's like, from up here, all the people look like trash. What's that from? My anime.
My anime. Yeah. Like, she says these little liners that are so freaking funny too. Yeah. I'm just like, this kid is
She's
freaking
so funny.
funny.
Well, Papa, I can see her boobies.
Like, oh my god!
So funny.
Like, don't yell in here. Like, okay, Papa, I can see your boobies. Like, you're like, what? You're like, Anya.
Anya, no. And then
Anya, no.
She lost her head. She lost her body. Remember what we said about screaming in here, Anya? Like, I love that. It's like, stop screaming.
Like, chop.
Yeah, chop.
Chop. Ow. I just bit my lip.
That's what you get for trying to imitate Anya. It's too strong of a voice. Oh no!
It hurt.
Oh no!
It's bleeding.
Is it really?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay.
No, I just wanted to make you feel bad.
Okay, I'm leaving all that in.
Now you guys will know how much of a little shit I actually am.
It's not just me. I'm not always in little shit mode. It's Stella too.
But yeah, no, the more the show goes on, the more I just like love Anya. Like the more I'm just like this child is my favorite of all favorite childs. Like
I would say Anya's pretty high up there. I think we said this last time, but it's like Anya could rival one day the greatest child anime character of all time, which is of course Phil. Young Phil.
Phil. You know what's funny too is she really does remind me of like a child, like an actual, like she says things that children actually say.
Yeah.
Because like little I have a story about like I have like a really young sister, right? And like, you know, planet sister. Right?
I was gonna say you have a sister?
Yeah, planet sister. Yeah.
She went to a different planet, not Earth.
Yeah. And my parent planet, you know, was you know, my mother, the mother planet. She's telling a story about how my brother got like an ear, like a rock stuck in his ear when she gave birth to my sister. And the littlest sister, she was like she was like very small, right? Like maybe a little, maybe like Anya's age, because Anya's like 4 actually, right? Like she's not 6.
She's 4 or 5. She's not actually 6. I think she's 4 or 5.
She's like 4 or 5, right? And I just remember she goes, "You also when she was giving birth to my sister, my brother got that rock stuck in his ear and he had to go to the hospital, and she responds, 'You weren't there to support me?'"
That's funny. You
Like,
weren't there to support me.
You weren't there to support me. I'm not gonna lie, Anya reminds me a lot of my younger sibling, like my younger sister, when she was like that age. She said the weirdest things. She would have said like a lot of that stuff. I'm just like, and maybe that's why I really like Anya. Like, I know everyone likes Anya, but like,
Yeah.
she reminds me a lot of my own sister when she was little. And so I just think of, you weren't there to support me. Like,
That does sound like an Anya thing. Like,
yeah, like imagine
Papa's a liar.
Anya. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just imagine Anya like had a sibling and like, found out something happened on the day of her birth and she's like, "You weren't there to support me, Papa?" Or Mama?
Yeah, that sounds like it does sound like an Anya thing to say.
Yeah.
She's just, I don't know, there's something about Anya that's just like protect this one type thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Well, we've also been through, like, it's episode 3, so we've been through like the typical amount of time where like this is usually where people are gonna like stay watching or drop the series.
Yep.
So you've been with Anya for long enough to really know her as a character.
Yep.
And at this point, like, if you don't like Anya, like, you're probably never gonna like Anya.
Yes.
And I understand, because like we both are two people who don't usually like kid characters, I assume. Like, I don't like kid characters. Yeah, like, I find them annoying. But like with Anya, for whatever reason, I don't. I think it's because even though Anya does do dumb things, they aren't like dumb for the sake of being dumb. Like, they always feel like they're serving a narrative function.
Mm-hmm.
And Anya and it still makes sense for Anya as a character to do that thing, you know, because she's like, not only is she a kid character, she's like very, very young. She's like 4 or 5, right?
Yep.
They say, like, she says 6, but like she's lying, right?
Yeah.
So she's supposed to be very, very young. So like when she makes dumb decisions, like, I'm a little bit more lenient and forgiving. Right?
Yeah. Or says some things. Well, because sometimes kids can
she's
literally
intuitive.
Kids say the darndest things, and that's the truest sentiment. Like, because only a child would look at a painting and go, "Look, Dad," out loud. "Look, Dad, I can see her boobies."
Yeah.
Like,
they have no inhibition, right? Like, they have no like sense of social constructs, you know? Like, they don't understand that maybe there's some things you don't yell in a museum.
In a museum, yeah.
Like, well, it's funny, right? Because like I think the thing that I appreciate that Anya does, that like other kid characters, I find them annoying and they get in the way, whereas Anya, because of her ESP, does not get in the way. She very much like goes out of her way to help, right? Mm-hmm. Which is very helpful. The only time Anya's ever gotten in the way, quote unquote, is the time she got kidnapped. But that was the first friggin' episode, you know? Like, she wasn't aware that, like, it was... Oh, it's real. Like she knew it was real, but not how real it was.
Yeah, like, it really scared her, and she really realized, like, the consequence of her act. Because that's the thing, is, like, kids learn the best by the consequences of their action.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell a kid, like, no, don't do that, right? Like, don't put your hand near the stove, right, when it's on.
Yeah.
And they won't listen until the moment they actually do it and they burn themselves and it hurts.
Yeah.
Then they won't ever do it again.
Exactly.
Right?
Kids learn from, like, experience, you know, like, because you could tell them no a bunch of times and they're still going to do it anyway. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah. And it's funny too, right? Because there's moments with Anya. There's one moment in particular with Anya this week where I got like, I could feel myself get defensive, right? And it's when they're in the crowd and the dude from, I forget what it's called, Westalis, I believe, is there. And because I can't remember where, they're in, not Westalis, but I can't remember the other country's name.
Yeah.
The eastern country, right? And so the people in that crowd are yelling at the guy and saying like really awful things and being kind of the R word, which we can't say on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
They're being raging jerks.
Yeah. where I come from in space, we say spacist.
Spacists. Yeah.
And they're
That would be like you guys can kind of fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
But it scares Anya, right? She's like,
Yeah.
I don't really want to be here. Like you could like, and the way she says it is not her tone of voice. Like the way that she says it was like, you can tell she was scared, right?
Yeah.
And she like turns and like grabs onto Twilight, right? Like in a really, like she was nervous, and he's like, yeah, okay. And I love that Twilight's like, yeah, okay, nope, that's totally fine. I know that it's probably a little scary, so we should get going, right?
Yeah.
Like he just knew, he understood. He's getting a lot better at being a dad, right?
Yeah.
He's like, he understood. I get it. Let's go, right?
Yeah.
He is still trying to get them to be like high society, but that doesn't mean you necessarily. Because I want to be like, Twilight, you don't necessarily have to bring your child to the rally. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to like bring them to like this big open town hall discussion thing, because the kid doesn't have to be there. Like the opera, I get that, right?
Yeah.
Even then, bringing a kid to an opera sounds like an awful time.
Yeah, I mean, she was not having fun.
No, she was bored out of her skull. You see her fall asleep. Yor looked like she was kind of interested, but she was like steaming for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know why she was steaming. Like,
yeah, I couldn't tell what was going on there. Yeah, I was like, that was odd. But yeah, Yor was turning into a titan. Yor's a titan shifter. She was steaming. And then yeah, like Yor is another one this week who I was impressed with. Because she gets to be sort of like a mom, and it reminds her of being the older sister to her younger brother.
Which is funny, because like then she thinks like, oh, this is like when I used to hold my younger brother's hand. Oh, it was such cute times. And then there was the one time I accidentally hugged him so hard that I broke 2 ribs. And
Anya runs. She's like, oh my god!
She goes and hides.
Yeah. Well, it makes Yor cry. She's like, oh.
I know.
Because Yor just wants to be like a good mom. And even like, it's funny because by the end of the episode, like we were saying, like, I really hope that those two get together. Like Twilight and Yor, I see the sparks, you know, like when they're like being cutesy and kind of flirting. And even Anya's like, they're flirting.
I want more for them to get together. Not because like I necessarily am like I do ship them, but like not in this, but not as much as I like just want Anya to have a family.
That's like I ship it, but I mostly want them together because it would be good for Anya. You know? But also like they're perfect for each other. You know, like
that too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're perfect for each other.
Well,
but it's
the scene of them like running from the art thieves, right, was one of like the most like I could feel the chemistry. It was nuts. Right? Yeah. Like it was such a like there was so much chemistry in that scene. And this week, like there's chemistry, but like we don't really get a lot of it because it's mainly focused around them being parents to Anya. So you don't really get like shippy moments. Like they're there. Like at the end when it's like Mama and Papa are flirting. They're like, we are not. Like that moment was like I could feel it there. But like it's not a very shippy episode. But stuff with Yor being like a mom was good. Speaking of the brother though, we should probably address something. That Stella caught that I didn't even really connect.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, like, so far, like, we've had this emphasis on Yor's brother a little bit. Like she's talked about him, but, like, we didn't really get to see a photo of him. And, like, but the way she, like, talks about him, I'm like...
This civil servant, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, you know what would be funny is if, like, Yor's brother ended up being, like, an enemy to...
Twilight,
right? Like, that would be funny. Or, not funny, but it would be, like, it would be, like, oh, that's a coincidence, right? Yeah,
it's like, of course,
But then we got our ending sequence. We got the ending this week. And there is a part where you see a guy with black hair and just like a button-up shirt and a tie, and he turns and he's in a military outfit.
And he's got red eyes.
Uniform. And he's got red eyes and black hair.
And
like literally
just like Yor. Yeah.
He looks just like Yor. And I'm like, that's Yor's brother.
That's gotta be Yor's brother. And the way that he turns is like...
And how he looks
the way he looks with the military outfit, everything about him just looks sort of like... He looks like... I don't know if he's necessarily going to be, like, evil, but he's absolutely going to be an obstacle, right? Like, he's gonna be something about the brother is gonna become a problem because they talk about him and they're literally like looking at a photo. I don't know if you remember, but they're looking at a photo on the desk, but the photo for like the frame is turned away from us, so we can't
the frame
see.
is exactly. The frame is turned away, so it becomes like really hard to know exactly what to see what he looks like.
Yeah,
right.
Which
And
I think
so,
having him in the ED is for like people who are really sharp and like looking for him, or for manga fans who already know what he looks like.
yeah,
You
who
know?
already knows what he looks. Yeah, and like it's crazy because like it's one of those things where like I don't like. There are so many times narratively like you'll catch things like you'll just know, right? Because in the narrative, I'm like, the way that they talk about her brother and the way that he's like, we never see his face, kind of like how kind of mysterious he is, right? It's like in a way of like something's up with him, especially with the way they had like the picture frame, and we didn't get to see anything on that picture frame.
Yeah, like definitely something's
I was like,
amiss. Yeah,
something's up.
maybe he works at the school, right? Like maybe he becomes involved with the school in some way, right?
Yeah,
because
maybe.
like that'd be interesting. We do see like a lot of kids in the ED, right? So it's like maybe he teaches at the school and like that's the job that he was talking about to your. But no, because he said he was gonna get promotion like in the government, so that wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, who knows? Like, maybe he's going to be connected in some way. To me, I think it just makes sense to bring the brother into the story as sort of an obstacle for Twilight. Because then you can make the joke, like, Twilight would make a, like, brothers-in-laws, right? Like, some kind of joke like that. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, ugh, in-laws, right? Yeah, just something like that.
Well, he's probably instantly gonna know something's up when he finds out that his sister is just randomly married.
Randomly married and has been for a year. Right? It's like, what?
Didn't tell him.
Didn't tell him, right? And they even say, like, Twilight and Yor are like, okay, we'll think of something to say. And I'm like, there's no good excuse, you know? Like, it's kind of hard to buy if you're the parents or the siblings or anybody like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm very curious to see, like, where they go with that particular element of the story. But
what if he's also connected to Anya in some way?
Well, I feel like he was wearing a lab coat, right? Because it looked like he was wearing either a dress shirt or a lab coat. Because it was, like, all white. So I'm like, maybe, well, because, and the thing, too, is he's, like, the only other person in that shot is Anya.
It's Anya. Yeah, Anya. Because I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, okay. So, like, I feel like he's going to be a major character because he's a character that we have heard about who's been brought up the most in these 3 episodes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, but we have yet to actually see him. Right? Like, we haven't experienced any other characters like that. He's the only one, right? Yeah. And, like,
he's the big mystery.
He has a connection to Yor, obviously. If he ends up being an enemy to Twilight or Lloyd, that's the connection.
Yeah.
And maybe and it wouldn't make sense to just then, like, leave it at them.
Why not make him connected to Anya? Yeah, like he's like the key, you know?
Yeah, he's connected to all of them, right?
Yeah. I think
that would be cool. Interesting.
I think so too. Do you have anything else to add before we start to wrap up?
I actually don't think I do. You know, like,
good episode,
it was a good episode. I feel like people when they sit there and listen to our predictions because we don't know what's gonna happen, they're like, yes. Or they're gonna be like, no. I'm actually pretty good at predictions. I will just say that I am.
Nice. I mean, this is true. I can vouch. Okay, but I do have one more thing to add.
Okay.
So we were talking before the video, before watching this episode, right?
Yeah.
On we wanted to, how I wanted to do like some who would wins in a fight, right?
Yeah.
And one of the ones that came up was Zero from Vampire Knight versus Twilight from Spy X Family.
Oh,
Spy Family.
There's a wasp.
Oh, there is a wasp in Stella's room. Anyway, tell me who you think would win in a fight. Zero from Vampire Knight or Twilight from Spy Family. And don't be biased, but like, I still think it'd be Twilight. Anyway, wish Stella luck fighting that wasp. Okay, we'll see you later, outro. And that's gonna do it for today's discussion, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for listening. As always, I want to give a big thank you to the lovely people who help support us over on Patreon. And if you too would like to have your name scrolling past the screen, then be sure to check out that Patreon link in the description. And of course, a big thank you has to go to Asaki VT, Elizabeth Just Elizabeth, JCran23, Jeremy P, Matt87 Eagle, Shadow Creative, Shiorins, Stephen G, Stevie W, Trap Master, Trevor W, and Tristan G. Thank you all so much for your continued support. It means the world to me. Thank you so much. Check me out over on Twitch, on Twitter, all the fun stuff. Links to everything are in the first link in the description. Thank you so much for watching / listening, and I will see you in the next one.